He makes videos about computers on the internet. Timmy Joe PC Tech. Tech reviews, computer parts. You betcha.
What's going on, guys? My name's Timmy Joe, making videos about computer parts, horribly photoshopping computer parts on the internet. And today on the program, well, there's been a crazy announcement recently from AMD that a lot of people are overlooking, mostly because it's in a dang Mac Pro. But it's definitely worth talking about because world's fastest graphics card has come out of AMD's mouth, well, out of Apple's mouth recently, and that's not having to do with gaming, is it? But I want to ask the question, because it's happened before. What if AMD made the world's fastest gaming graphics card basically through any means necessary? Because they've done it before, and it could be done again. I mean, half the R&D, if not more, has already been done. But would it be worth it? Would it be worth it? Well, let's ask that question in just a second. But first, we gotta talk about Privacy VPN because they are the sponsor of today's video. Thank you very much. And they are a very well-featured, inexpensive VPN service. You probably need a VPN if you're a nerd like me because you go on shady websites sometimes, or you're downloading things or doing stuff or going on public Wi-Fi. You want to make sure you're protected, or maybe you just want to stream Netflix from, as if you're in down under, down in Australia. You want to see what kind of wallaby programming they have. That's racist. Anyways, so yes, you can check out the link below and you'll get 20% off of a 2-year subscription, which is about $40 some USD. It's a really good plan and just helps to have that in your back pocket. So if you weren't thinking about it before, go check out the link below. Privacy VPN. There you go. Did the shill spot. I also want to shield myself a little bit because I'm coming up on 100,000 subscribers. It's amazing. Thank you guys so much. And something I want very much to happen because of this milestone, and that is that I get sampled the upcoming Ryzen suite. Something. 12 core, 8 core, I don't care. Just give me something. Give me something, AMD, please. I've only ever received a combat crate from you, and that was not very exciting. I'd love to see something awesome from AMD come in my doorstep so I can review day one coverage of Ryzen and overclock it with LN2 or, I don't know, dry ice or a bucket full of ice or whatever it is. So I'm starting the hashtag Ryzen 3 for Timmy. I don't know. So maybe that'll work. Send a tweet to Lisa Sue. Speaking of Lisa Sue, whoa, this doesn't work anymore, so who gives a hell? She recently had some stuff to say at Computex. A lot of good stuff's been coming out of AMD, of course Ryzen based, but not so much in the GPU space, but then again, there was in the GPU space. So if you listen to Lisa Sue at Computex, she said,
"We have a number of design wins and engagements that are looking at bringing Vega into all aspects of the data center. And what we see is tremendous momentum. So you're going to continue to see Vega, and you're going to continue to see Vega in these large, compute-intensive workstation workloads, and you'll hear a lot."
So, yes, she said we're going to continue to see Vega, and it had me wondering at the time, but she's, of course, not talking about gaming. So, now he's coming. It's a little bit of a different architecture, a little bit of different stuff going on there. And so what's with this Radeon business, huh? Well, so Apple recently had their big DFQ keynote where they announced their new Mac Pro. And of course, one of the stars of the show,
it's the world's most powerful graphics card. And Mac Pro is designed to accommodate 2 modules with up to
coming from Radeon. Oh my goodness, that is quite a claim to make. But when you take 2 of these puppies, actually even a little bit better than 2 of these puppies, and put them on one graphics card, all of a sudden you've got quite the possibility for making a statement like that, the world's fastest graphics card. Of course, they're not saying anything about gaming there. This all has to do with pro high-end workstation workloads, rendering, computer animation, lots of 8K rendering of, freaking, what is that, the Red Helios, whatever, all that 8K footage. Well, now you're going to be able to do it properly on a Mac. That's wonderful for them. But there's some stuff to look at here. We can look at some of these specs and see that this thing right here, the Radeon 7, isn't the top end. And that means that we could see a little bit better Radeon 7 at some point, because they did trim down the stream processors from Vega 64, and although they shrunk the process, they cut some out. So there is a little bit of performance on the table with a little bit higher end version that they obviously were saving for this single GPU Mac Pro card, this Radeon Pro Vega 2. But then they went and changed the game up a little bit, and they made a dual GPU solution. A dual GPU solution for this guy that looks real funky, doesn't it? Well, first of all, it's upside down in this video cards article, but there is two PCI connectors there. Like, what's going on there? Well, they made a special motherboard for Mac, and basically this end one here is for power delivery and for fast Thunderbolt connections that go to other spots on the Mac Pro. So this whole thing could be eliminated, flip it around, and it looks a lot more like a standard graphics card, except for these little nubbins here, which are actually Infinity Fabric connectors to connect up to two of these together. So you could also have a Radeon Pro Vega 2 times 2 in this Mac and have basically 4 GPUs working for you. That is absolutely insane. That's crazy. And that's more than NVIDIA's doing right now. You can connect two. Well, I don't know about their Quadro cards and stuff like that, but with NVLink, you can connect 2 graphics cards, but that's still only giving you 2 GPUs, 2 graphics processing units. Now you can take this Radeon Pro Vega, whatever, put 2 of them together and connect them with that Infinity Fabric bridge. And that's going to be pretty crazy stuff. So I kind of give you this. What if GPU technology is kind of reaching an endpoint? Because although, yes, NVIDIA's faster in their GPUs, or, you can make the die bigger at a smaller process and get more power out of it. But we're at 7 nanometer now. And all you can do is make the die bigger because you can't go much smaller than 7 nanometer. So it's possible that we will have to look to dual GPU solutions in the future to get much faster than whatever's going to be after a 2080 Ti. Because they will shrink their, NVIDIA is actually on 12 nanometer right now. They can bring it down to 7. And then from there, where do they go? There are some ways to overcome this 7 nanometer thing with some carbon nanotubes and stuff like that. But I think more than likely we're going to see the resurgence of dual GPU cards, and maybe AMD's thinking this. That's why they have so much R&D into this. This is not some fly-by-night thing. This is some massive stuff with a massive partner. Lots of these workstations are going to be sold. So maybe we're seeing a little bit of the future right now from AMD. But if we see they've done this before, had the world's fastest graphics card, and it was as recently as as recently as Fiji. As recently as the first iteration of Vega, basically, in the Fury cards. And that was 2 Fury cores on 1 card, water-cooled, and it was the fastest GPU in the world for a while, which was pretty crazy. I'd love to get my hands on one of these things. They're still like $1,000. But with the 4 gigs of memory limitation, you're not going to really whatever. But I haven't really seen many videos of people gaming on these things. It would be really interesting to see what you could do in that department, if it's even plausible. But they've done that before, and it's a pretty awesome thing. But this wasn't really considered a success. And they've even been revamping the Pro Duo name with Polaris GPUs after this, so that they can increase the RAM count, because HBM was such a problem for this era of card. So what about the gaming? Because that's what I was hinting at in the beginning. What about the gaming? Well, they've definitely released the world's fastest graphics card for gaming before using this dual GPU solution. I'm holding it in my hand. It's on my shirt. You can still buy the shirt. I'll leave a link in the description. But you should definitely stop staring at my GPU. Thanks. You skis ball. Anyways. But yeah, they've released the world's fastest gaming graphics card in the R9 295X2. And that was a pretty big success because it even beat out the Titan Z back then, which actually had much stronger compute performance and stuff like that. But it was a scaled back version and it wasn't water cooled. And there was some debate on whether, which one was faster. But it's hard to really find this information. But this was half the price. So I'm just going to give the win to this guy because they were very, very close. But this wasn't even a gaming card anyways. It was a Titan. So it wasn't meant to go out and, play Crisis on, even though some people did that. So what's going on with, the future of this technology and what's kind of stopping it? Well, we know that Crossfire and SLI need support from the developers to work. And that there's been a lot of issues with how fast the GPUs can talk to each other. And, Crossfire in general was this thing where you could add multiple cards together. It was, this was kind of an afterthought, which was actually a better implementation of it, because with this little chip here, a PLX chip, we're already in this card here getting 48 PCIe lanes at 3 times for 96 gigabytes a second of throughput of these guys talking to each other. And now we have Infinity Fabric. Well, how much better is that? Well, people keep talking, and I've been looking into some, different articles and stuff here on PC games. AMD's highest performance graphics card will never make it to a gaming PC. Well, I think it's possible it might. Depends on how things go. Depends if there's some major change in the way, quote, smaller than 7 nanometer goes, because we might have to resort to this. And we've seen this with Ryzen. And at the beginning, everyone was saying, well, who cares how many cores Ryzen has? Games don't take advantage of them. And here we are a few years later, and games are really starting to take advantage of them. So when a game changer like Ryzen comes along, the industry actually changes as well. So we might see a resurgence of more than one graphics chip, or smaller chiplet graphics chips or something like that, all around some sort of centralized die. They might have to change their technology to kind of work the same way as Ryzen does, or as the CPU industry is going. So I read down here that it says here that it's got the Infinity Fabric that makes the GPUs talk to each other. And no, if you look back, a couple slides here and you check out, you see there is a PLX chip right there. These guys are talking to each other, not through Infinity Fabric, I don't think, but through that PLX chip, which is a very fast way of communicating, and it's probably gotten way better since this, because this is like 5 years old now. So I'm sure that, the Infinity Fabric doesn't come into it but they'll probably label, like, if you check out here, the Infinity Fabric is actually, here on Linus Tech Tips, how that external connector, basically how an SLI bridge or a Crossfire bridge now is, because the AMD hasn't used this for a long time. They've used the PCI Express standard, which is another thing that's changing with this current generation of Ryzen. So we'll talk about that in a second. But this Infinity Fabric allows multiple GPUs to be connected at 84 gigabytes a second. Yeah, that's really, really fast. You might say, well, NV Link's faster than that. Well, not on gaming GPUs. If you see Gamers Nexus here says that it's limited by the 16 times PCIe 3.0 standard, which gives you about 16 gigabits a second. So there's a lot of new technologies coming out of AMD here in Infinity Fabric for communication between two graphics cards. Also, the PCIe 4.0 standard is going to dramatically increase how much throughput could be talked through this connector as well as they do have Infinity Fabric, which allows their CPU cores to talk to each other very, very fast. So there's a lot of technologies that are in their infancy that AMD is pulling out of their butts that we might see dramatically change the way graphics cards work in the upcoming years. So to answer the question, what if AMD made the world's fastest gaming graphics card, even if it had 2 GPUs? Well, that would be pretty cool, but it's definitely not going to happen anytime soon. I don't think we're going to see a gaming version of the Radeon, Pro Duo for PCs, non-Macs. There isn't even any word on whether or not that'll make its way to just a standard card that can plug into a PC. Although it probably will. But they have their Radeon Instinct line that's kind of been taking that stuff, that way. But I will put this in your minds. I think eventually we will have to move to a multi-GPU scenario that talks to each other just like Ryzen kind of changed the game, with the chiplets or just with multi-core, in Ryzen and Infinity Fabric. So there might come a time in the not so distant future that NVIDIA has kind of capped out what they can do with their GPUs, and that they're actually moved down to 7 nanometer or some variation of that, the smallest bit, and they have to move to a multi-GPU scenario where they all kind of talk to each other and distribute the workloads. And that might happen sooner than you think, because we're at the bottom. We're at 7 nanometer with Radeon. What is their next play? I don't know. We'll have to see how good Navi is, I guess. But from the talks, it's not an NVIDIA killer or anything. So put this in your mind. What if instead of Vegas, the next Navi, after what's going to come out this summer, is 2 Navi cores on one that talk with Infinity Fabric, that maybe is kind of made fun of in the beginning because not a lot of games support Crossfire, or maybe they develop some way to actually, through hardware or some software implementation, actually put all that load of distributing the game between 2 GPUs onto like the graphics card itself, or onto some amazing software that makes it so game developers don't necessarily have to work the dual GPU solution into their game. And we start seeing where AMD uses Infinity Fabric to beat out NVIDIA using 2 GPUs or 4 GPUs or 8 GPUs, maybe little chiplets. Who knows? It's interesting. We live in an interesting time. So I'm at Watch Timmy Joe, Instagram and Twitter. Remember the hashtag Ryzen 3 for Timmy. Send it to Lisa Sue, because I really would love to check that out on game day. Man, that would be awesome. But I think this is a little interesting look back at how AMD's been hanging in there. And although they aren't usually the fastest gaming graphics card out there, but on paper, they almost always have the world's fastest graphics card, not graphics processing unit. And we might see that industry change in their favor in the coming years. At Watch Timmy Joe, Instagram and Twitter, thank you very much. Thanks to IFC for sponsoring the video. That's all I have to say about this, except for don't buy the Mac Pro. Somebody sent me on my New Plebs email, this is the stupidest ad I've ever seen, and they sent me Apple's landing page for the new Mac Pro. And like saying I should include that in New Plebs, try to sell things on the internet, and I thought that was kind of funny. I'll see you guys in another video. Thank you very much. See you later.